Alright, and hello there. Welcome to Bug Free Productions. Doing something a little different this time. So, what we'll be looking at today is a project I've already started. This was uh, greenlit for me to share the code as I develop it. Um, it's kind of like a secondary project for me. So, we pull into the screen. So first of all, hello and welcome to Bug Free Productions. You can visit live on twitch.tv at jib at BFP, or you can always go to the YouTube if you miss or want to catch up on certain videos. You can go to Bug Free Productions where the whole archive is there. Remember to follow on Twitch and like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as comment any questions you have um, on YouTube. That would be the best way for me to see your feedback or just questions in general, which would be really good. The last one you noticed probably didn't have the bug on it. I just totally forgot. I was too busy troubleshooting my monitor to worry about it either. So that's where that was at. But last was our regular JSON string, JSON stream, which was just a recap of the JSON. So make sure to comment any questions on that at all to make sure we keep up with that. Because one of the videos was lost, so if there's something that I missed over the 4 videos, just let me know in the comments, and we'll keep going here. So, with that, let's flip over to our full screen view. Um, there's a couple errors here because I was working on it and then I had to back off and leave, so there's just like a few like semicolons missing. Um, this one, which I'm setting up, so basically where I'm picking up is I'm partway through setting up the move state. If you have questions about move state, you can always go back and watch my other character controller videos in uh, the bike race tutorial on YouTube. So we have the APMCL player context local. So this is going to be networked at some point. So I want to keep all my classes um, labeled, whether they're local or multiplayer, just for my sake of sanity, because they might be different. And I very well could carry this context all the way through, but I might not. So, in fact, I probably won't. So, with that, we'll continue. I'm also going to go over and change the and split back, turn the music off. I would leave it on as backing, but I have no idea how that sounds on the end, user end. So don't want to monitor that if I don't have to. And then PCMCL, player move context local, dot. So let's go ahead and open up in Unity because it works a little bit better through that. To go to the projects and go to move state. So I'm gonna need all these open, right? So can I do this? Nope. Ah, wells. Um, so this is local move context. And then let's go this one. Then let's go this one. And just make sure I get all my crap opened up so that I'm ready to start. So again, move context holds states and which state is current. States keep track of what they're supposed to be doing and how they're supposed to function, what they lead into, and anything else we want to save by the state that we're in. So VR input bridge, model behavior, serialized field class, local. So this is creating a local move context in the bridge, a variable. So I will be using a bridge again. It's a little bit different this time because I'm going to want a application and a VR setup. So we're going to see how much of that I can do. Be interesting to do that. We'll start with the regular 3D controller and then pivot into the virtual one. Reason being, I don't even have a headset yet. So until the headset comes in, it's going to be 3D for now. Lock to point. So player move state, lock to point, player move state. This idea being that they are locked to a specific point, which if you look at the title of the stream should say VR classroom session. So we'll probably lock them to a point at some point because whether this is depending on how this application is used for the specific user, and then we have free walk, player move context, local, mono behavior, context local being a mono behavior is good. Then we have protected current move state equals new player move state. So don't actually want that set there. What I want it to be set to is probably just null. And that's because I'd actually set that up on something like on enable. Is my preferred place to do that. Protected virtual void ONENABLE on enable. And why do I like doing this on enable? It's because I also have other things I want to create, which I would create first. So it would be a protective player move state. So, and it's not current main play state. It's this one would actually be a reference to free walk. So I'd probably do underscore free walk. And you'll notice that this is probably something that most C# developers would not like. I only do this because it's kind of like a prefix for me to help me keep track of what I'm doing. Similar to some people will do like a dash in here. Nope, an underscore in here to dictate that it's local, but that actually is, I don't know, harder for me to read. If you're working by yourself, you can name them whatever. If you're working for somebody, they'll probably have rules for you to name them anyway. So free walk, lock to point. Lock to, and the reason I do the extension on these ones is because these will also have getters and setters so that states and other things can access them. I mean, they'll have getters, but not setters, so accessors with get. But they won't necessarily but then we're also going to have state change methods. So we need a convention to separate the accessors and the variables from the change state methods, and the change state methods should match those in the state in the states. So you don't want those particular either. Was there any other? No, because free walk was going to be point click. There's no reason to incorporate sprinting into this game. So actually, I'm just not going to do that. Or rather, application, not a game. But either way, semantics. What do we have? So we're going to need a public public getters for those two states. And those are going to return player move states. Underscore. Okay, so actually I would do capital P. And yes, I'm aware of the unfortunate naming of these three letters, but you know, whatever. It's nowhere near as bad as the initial dodgeball naming conventions that appeared. As one of the words involved is ball, you can imagine how weird some of those names looked, or you know, what have you. Get return current PM. Mm, that's not right. So that's the wrong autocomplete. I want to return this. And then free walk. So then we're going to need one for this. We should also have one for current move state. So actually I'll do one before that. Public player move state. That's going to be cur. And actually that brings up the point. Maybe I'll rename those now, but maybe it shouldn't be that way. Maybe it should be this so that we shouldn't have done that. I meant to right click and rename. Oh well. There, so then we don't have the underscore, and there will be less confusion for other people editing your code. Plus the Unity editor will break it apart a little bit better. So protected move state equals new it's underscore free walk. Player move state. I have a feeling I just didn't finish setting those up. We'll look at those in a minute. New player move state of lock to point. Also with parameters. Since that's an error. Okay, so I did just not edit this one, and all I have to do is make that inherit from player move state. Move state. So why is it inheriting from that? So that all states have the same can have the same functions, inherit from the same thing, and we can do things like this. Player move state equals a new, more specific move state, but we can use it in the rest of the pattern normally. Again, if you're unsure about it, there's a player movement type thing in the other playlist, or you can just ask questions live or in comments. In comments, you probably should go back and review those other videos first then though. Protected virtual on enable. So what did we want to do? Basically I want to set cur PMS into a normal variable, right? I want to change it into whatever our default is. So we could choose to lock them to a position by initial, or we could just let them free walk by initial, which is probably what I'd gravitate towards in my design process, unless it becomes a problem. But I don't see that being a problem. currently. That's going to be, the reason I can do this is because we start here, and once this is executed, this can still be null. And then once we set this, so I'll start with set defaults, which I probably will extract into a TS, which I'll probably extract into an actual method later. Because in here would be get collects, because I'm a little specific about my language that I use in comments and in method names. Collect vars is usually a method that I really like to make, and I make it in a lot of different methods, or not methods, classes, protected virtual, collects, VARS. And why do I do that? Because void. Because eventually I'll start getting like rigid bodies and other things for the move context to communicate to other objects. And I'll do that in collect vars because I hate when people put actual code. And by that I mean something that does functions in the onEnable, or not onEnable, but just like update in general. So if I had to set like a bunch of different variables, I would rather have that out in a different method that I could edit just the method, or I could create extra overloads that change those methods by how I call them in onEnable or what have you, rather than trying to edit this all the time and keep this updated, and then only having one set of things I can use. Becomes really restrictive, and you notice that once you start developing bigger applications. So we got cur PMS, free walk PMS. So all of these are working. Collect vars. Don't need to do anything with that yet. Is there anything else I need to communicate? I need to communicate lock 2 points. And these need, for consistency and also so we can use that other name later. And then we also notice we don't need this saved up. So those do nothing but return, which is good. So this is good. Now we can go back to our player move states, correct? Yes. So this is kind of like the default state. So we're going to have public methods because we need to be able to call them. And we're going to actually return by default the PCL dot lock 2 point. So it'd be lock 2 point PMS. And the reason we're just returning that is because the move context should still decide what it, or doesn't really, it shouldn't decide what it does based on the state, but it's setting it here causes one additional problem, which I'll walk through later. Public virtual move states. So we're doing pretty good. We can probably dupe this. Control C. Enter Control V, enter Control V. Don't really need the third one. I was thinking of current move state, but you don't really need that. Also, this is going to be, also this doesn't need to be here. Lock to point and free walk. Yes. Because it's not the title of the classes that we want, it's the methods that we want. Which this will then become that. So basically saying I want to return the state that is associated with it by default, and then I can change that later. So actually one more thing in the accessors that I usually do is I usually make a public, and then for each of these states I'll create a boolean is and this is kind of just for my practiced idea that I came up with. Could use integers and strings or what have you, but I think this is the simplest for me to remember how to do. So we got, I'm just going to actually copy this. Control V. Lock to point. Type is bool. I can make this virtual, meaning I can overwrite it later. Why would I want to overwrite it later? Well, because it's not always going to be not always going to be false. At some point it's going to be true. And we'll get that. And if anyone's wondering what these shortcuts are in Visual Studio, I'm just using Control D, Control C, and Control V. Control copy, Control duplicate, and Control paste. So if that's ready, that should be good for default. Nobody else really needs to define those then. Nothing else yet to add into this state. So be our player move context, and the player move context can now have, so I'll probably group these up a little bit. So probably going to open a region. Region is just to help me organize my code, breaks it up a little bit, gets a title if I want. So this will be access to move states. And then down here I can just do hash end region, which closes a region. You'll notice that that had a squiggle on it before end region was typed in. Region and end region do have to occur before braces in order to allow it to be usable. Otherwise it provides that error. So what would our next one be? Probably gonna open a region in here actually. And what's this region going to be for? This region is going to be for change state methods. Change state methods. And what does this change state methods really do? This is where I'm going to be putting all of the methods that change the state or are used in state change. So there's one more method. There's one more that I want to add, and that is protected, and it is not player move state, protected. Yes, it is player move state. And it's going to be last. Last player move state. That's also going to equal null by default. Yeah, that was tab, not caps lock. Cool. Why is that important? Because it just provides us that option of undo if I want to use it later. When we add certain things. So there will be a change. A protected here. Protected virtual, because change state is not going to be actually change state. This is going to be a void. Void type, no return. And what does it do? So what does it do exactly? We're going to have, I have to go check this and make sure this is still working. Yep, there it is. So what does this do? This is where I'm going to actually do some changing of the state, but it's not going to change the state per se. It's going to actually be called by the public. And the reason I put virtual over everything is just because I like to inherit things later and then override them or use the base in some way. Comes from working on Project Solo, not Project Solo necessarily, but working where there's not a lot of time to iterate between showings of the product. So this helps me go faster. It allows me a little more flexibility, being that I can overwrite and use bases, use the base class method, which is a big plus if you're game design or you're working on a small team, that sort of thing. Change state, void. So this is going to actually be like what we were talking about, free walk. So that's why I didn't want this as the getter name, which is what I would want to do if I was, following these with just caps. That kind of rule. So free walk. So we can change the state. Fair, right? We'll actually do one more. And I'm just gonna go get it. Let's just copy this. Free walk. Nope. Yes. Copy the wrong thing. So lock 2 point. Lock 2 point for a reason that is so set and so the last one I did, I think I had some sort of buffer player move state. Player move state. PMS is equal to cur dot free walk this. So you'll see how on the player move state, we have this player local context. So we need to pass in a player local context, which would be the instance of this class, because we want to change this class. Then we just do Control C, Control V, and change this to lock 2 points. This, which either in this method or in this method would probably have something more, because if you think lock to point, there would be a transform associated. But right now, until we code that functionality, let's keep it here. What would be next? So we hold the buffer. And then what I like to do, if cur, if this, so we can use these getters. Industry standard, depending on what industry you're in or whatever. Industry standards probably use this getter. Or maybe even this keyword before it. I'm just gonna leave it as this, because this being a protected variable should refer to this, unless we're like accessing through some other thing, but different use case. If cur PMS is equal, so if this state is equal to nope, that's wrong. If last state is equal to is that right? If last so basically I want to pull in this new one, right? If the last is equal to, I don't want to do it. So if it's not equal to current, um, okay. So if the current is not equal to the new and the last is not equal to the current, then last becomes current. That back step I was talking about. So then to make that work, last current. And then which means all of this could happen Player move state, Control V, and actually Control RR, because if it's in my parameters, I like to use the A as part of the naming convention. So A player move state. So then change state actually handles all this crap for me. I just have to call change state. And then I could make one that was undo state if I needed to undo states, so it would go back to last. So that works, right? Yep, so that should work theoretically. I say theoretically because I haven't run this yet. So all of this works, state change works, all of that works. So let's take a look at our bridge. Input bridge local. Let's take a look at our Unity. So, do I have any more errors? Looks like everything works. Some warnings. Layout contains editor windows not available in this project. Can we get, do we have, I don't think I added parallel sync for this yet. Not important until multiplayer is in the works, but as long as I know the namespaces I can't use in multiplayer, it should be fine. So let's go ahead and check some stuff off the list. So I need to, as always, go to 3D and create a plane because it's so irritating that it's not like that. So, multiplayer. So what do I need to do here? I need to go to the inspector, put it down by a -1. This is an old thing that you probably don't need to do anymore, but I find a good habit to do this. It had to do with gravity setup in the scene. It's just kind of weird. Materials. So if you can put things as much as you can put below 0 is good for the most part. Also, if you're spawning a bunch of stuff at 0, 0 that or putting stuff in 0, 0, then it's underneath that default, which is nice. Plane. So then we go projects and actually assets, input. What's my input look like? Should be set to autosave. Huh. Maybe I didn't actually get as far on this thing as I thought I did. Any case, new input action, add positive, negative, add binding with. Let's go ahead and change that. It's going to be a pass through, I assume. Could very well get there and find out it's not. Vector 2, initial state check. Don't need it. Got new action map. E R. That's weird. ER player. ER player input. Since I'm let's actually try clicking out. Okay, it doesn't add the space. So let's do the underscore because I don't like spaces sometimes are a pain. So the new action would be Move input. So no matter what, this is pretty much always going to be an up, down, left, right composite. Delete that no binding. 2D vector. So this is the binding, and this is the actual value and the event, essentially. So on move input, we have this binding that move input occurs on. So let's go create these for basic mouse and keyboard. There's a listen button here that's frickin' hidden. It's really stupid, but that's the way it is. That's the way it is. So let me go down, do S key, left, path, button, left key, A key, add. Okay. And then actually the other thing I'm gonna do is also just add another up, down, left, right composite. We can set up for an XR controller, I think would be the choice to use. Device position, device rotation, and is tracked. So we could do device position. We could do device rotation. The thing is, okay, so if you're going to be moving around an entire room, I don't think device position is going to work because that's in terms of change. It looks to be, at least that's what this menu is telling me. So I think the left hand joystick is actually what I want. Device position, device rotation. Okay, is tracked. Well, it's not what I want. There, there's no quest in here. XRHMD. Eye position. Wow, that's crazy. It's crazy that somebody can track that. I don't want listening. Come on. Okay, so we come back to here. XR controller. How do I access the XR controller? Left hand. That's so weird. The device position and device rotation are both offered to me, but the usages, pressure, primary action, primary trigger, secondary action, secondary trigger, submit, twist. Huh. Maybe we just delete this one for right now until I actually get the headset and can figure out what its input is actually looking like, because I could have sworn there was two joysticks, but maybe that's not universal and maybe it's not true at all. So we'll find out. We'll add an action, and this will be we'll just call it primary action. Hold on a second. This does feel like really repetitive compared. I could swear I did this already. No, primary action is because I did something similar. I was prototyping a possible like Mario Party type lesson, and it used a bridge that used the words primary action and secondary action, but didn't, um, you know, wasn't necessarily this VR primary or secondary action. Um, so primary action shouldn't be called each time either hand does it. So let's go ahead and look at, okay, so it has primary action, primary trigger, secondary action, secondary trigger. Stupid button there. Right hand, skipping to usages. So it must be a different way I get those control sticks. I might have to actually do some other things too and get like some other information because I haven't actually used a lot of VR AR. Well, I've used it, but I haven't really, like, it's not something I own, so memory of exactly what it is a little iffy some days. Primary action, so I'll call this left, and then I'm actually just going to dupe it, call this right. Um, primary action left and right are going to be used. I can just use Q and E probably for the keyboard command, which would be, we'll just use the listen feature for that. Primary action left, and then primary action right. So those are simple button actions. Is there anything else I want to test just yet? Probably not. Move and double primary action. Because the raycast will be associated with hand, so maybe I'll just do hand. And a line tool for the boy. What to do, what to do. Keyboard. So we're almost at an hour. I'm actually gonna see if I can find my water. I need to go grab my water. It's a thought of this one that we can use. Because the XR is gonna have a rotation and all that stuff ready for me to use. Then I can just cast raycast from it, right? So that's fine for that. Can do a similar thing with the just a position rotated. in the same direction as the player body. So that would be good. Probably a good idea to do that. So we can get that going. Yeah. Create empty. So do I want to create empty? Probably. So this is going to be, if you've watched any of the other tutorials, player container. I'll probably call this one local. Yeah, because they're not going to be the same object likely. So we could create another, well, let's just create a 3D object capsule. Hey, look, it's a capsule. Cool, cool, cool. Player local 0, that's zeroed, this is zeroed. Collision, pull up the container. So let's create an empty again. This would be something like whole bod. And then I'd actually put the capsule underneath it. And then this would be like the rot bod. Yes. Being rotation body and the render body. From here, what can we do? Could probably create some objects underneath the rot body. Let's create an empty, which is the same. Oh, I think that's probably what we'll want. And then this will be like left. First of all, actually, let's make sure that's true. So this is in world or local? Local, it shouldn't matter yet, but let's move it. Oh, let's 0. So let's move this left. Actually, this is just kind of a pointer, isn't it? We'll call this left. So left hand, and then we'll control and duplicate it. The right hand. Yeah, this is the first time using the new input system when I'm trying to target VR development. So some of this may or may not be right. Might have to go back and watch some more videos and stuff after the fact. For the most part, let's actually make this underscore Q. And why would I do that? Underscore E. So my thought is I don't want this keyboard going back to the same action actually anymore. And why wouldn't I want that? So we have primary action left being VR, right? We're gonna do slightly different methods depending on if we're in VR or if we're in like a computer setting. So I don't want them to use the same methods possibly because it would be easier to do the line cast from the main camera if we're in a 3D normal setting. And it will be easier to do it'll be easier to use hands and stuff with the tracking in a VR setting. Obviously much more immersive. So that's the difference. Because I want to try and use the same objects with the different inputs, hopefully. If that's possible. Might not be. We'll find out. Right hand, left hand, rot bod, whole bod. Add component. This will have like a rigid body. A rigged body. It's rigged for physics. Drag. Do a regular drag one or something. It does just become too much that way. Any rate. So what have we got? 59? Okay, so it's still under an hour. We can keep going with this. Is there anything else I want to add to this? Add. Can we just get a VR controller? Oh. Actually, that would be right here. Did I not install any of the XR stuff? That may or may not be a problem I need to look at later. Left hand, right hand. Just do .79 is what it was on the other side. Yep. So this and this. And what we'll actually be using is the main camera. So take the main camera and pull it under, not under the rot body. I suppose I can. It'll look bad, but let's just do it for right now. Oh, can't because it won't. Shouldn't because it'll, yeah, player container. I didn't import my camera scripts, did I? Viewport manager? I did import my viewport manager. Nice. So what would I want to do with the camera? I'm not super sure what I should do with the camera because thinking about this, the Oculus is going to affect it in a completely different way than the 3D is. So I'll probably need, let's just call this move, keyboard move. Keyboard move and get rid of that extra space. And I'll need another, this will be keyboard. I could just create two different action maps. With how it works. We'll see how this goes. We'll try this. We can always cut, like Control X. Nope. Control cut and paste a lot of these actions between different inputs, which is interesting. That's kind of fun. Delete new. So this is keyboard, and we'll delete binding, and we'll change this from a button to a pass through. That is a vector 2, and this vector 2 will take in, use, and up, down, left, right composite. Up would be, and we can't listen for this, which is a pain. So we have to go path, mouse, and we have to go delta. So there's the delta, which is the change, which should be normalized, I think. Then we have down. And then we have left and right. Okay. We'll just use player master player input. Now I'm gonna flip over to the holding screen real quick. Just to check one thing. Okay, there's nothing in there. Okay. Q keyboard. So this is all set up for the most part. So Q and E. I'm gonna call it master player input in case I can get both of these to work. I'm not sure if I can, but so this delta is all set up. So camera. So then we can just lock it from up and down so you can't look back behind you and down below you, that sort of thing, which I don't think the other camera did. It just can't. Yeah, so I would have had to create a new camera anyway. Main camera. So let's go ahead and do some quick scripts. I'm going to need a couple that aren't here with this base code that I imported. So create, netcode. That worked pretty fast. This is part of netcode for game objects. This is not mine. Let's do folder. So what would this be called? Let's just call this camera. Camera. Finger feels like it itches. I cut it open on a box today and it's just irritating. Scripts camera. Is there? Nope, there isn't one there. So we'll go ahead. Probably just create it in camera. Create C# scripts. Position. That's terrible. TO lock to position. And if we're locking to position, what else can we do? We can create. Let's go ahead and open that up, and then go back to Unity, and let's create one that is player. Yeah, we'll just call it player camera. No, not space. Camera. First thing I'm gonna do. Five. 22.5. And one thing I just always remind everybody is that usually gets and sets on accessors are underneath the bars, and then it's methods, so on. Mine's just a little bit different in order because I found that I don't adjust the accessors nearly as much, or not use them. I don't change them. I don't change the accessors nearly as much as I do the variables and the methods. So having these guys up closer to the top makes it quicker for me to move through the scripts. It may not be industry standard, but it helps with my particular development. I can always cut and paste and move stuff later anyway, after testing's over with. Region, so this region is going to be, let's call it player, let's call it like keyboard, KEY, board, keyboard, PLAY, player controls. Yeah. Two separate prefabs might even be easier than doing this. I'm noticing. Could still use the same script. You have to have two regions to do it though. And region. Keyboard player controls. What would it be? So let's call it something like public void, because it's not going to return anything. Let's go flip the screen over. So here we go. Public virtual void, which is going to be mouse cam controls, which will be a method. So yeah, region VR cam controls. It's probably spelled wrong. Hash end region, and I'm just gonna save that way, minimize that actually, and continue on my mouse cam controls. So this is probably going to use, since it's an input, it's going to be using UNITY Unity dot. I am thinking I might have a camera. No, it's kind of gross. It's not fixed. Mouse cam controls. So if we're doing mouse cam controls, that means we're gonna get, oh, it needs to be here. Input, so type callback context. A con is how I usually refer to this, meaning a context, and so vector 2, just call this in, nope, ender, new direction is equal to a con dot value dot read value. I think it needs a type. It's not right. Is it? Yep. So you have to include the type that you want to type of value you want to read. So mouse cam controls should pass into a vector vector2 value with this context, or that is a part of this context. And then we can do stuff like so what is it, like rot? Could do something like protected rot protected type, which would be vector3. Let's let's call it camRotter. Set equal to vector3, 0. That's perfectly fine. Okay. So it's con value. Yeah, so a lot of, and again, this is the reason we're separating this out is because this will not work in a VR setting. You expect the camera to follow your headset, so it'll probably use some form of built-in tracking. But testing purposes and just talking about possibly creating a layout in a 2D or 3D setting so that's easier for people to set up because in VR you don't want to be wearing that headset all the time. It'd be nice to take it off to create the rooms and whatnot. So that's what we're looking at. So read value vector 2. So this would correspond to the Y and the X rotation. Y and the X being, probably need to look at this. A vector 2 is up, down, and left, right. So it probably need to pertain to, so that would be Y then X, I think. Yeah, Y then X. It's up, down, left, right. So that's what we'll start with. camRotter is not equal to neuter. It's actually camRotter is actually equal to no, because it's X and Y input, right? I don't know. We'll find out when we test it. camRotter is equal to new because Y. No, wait, that should be perfectly right. That should be because you use the Y as the Z when you do move input, so it is actually X and then Y. Should be. So we can just do this because what this actually does is fill the X and the Y of camRot direction, but it'll have a Z of 0. So, or at least camRot direction will once it assigns to this. It'll assign it with a Z of 0. So this does work. It looks odd because we're just throwing a vector 2 directly into a vector 3. It's just weird. And also not quite right. Okay, because we still do have to flip them, which I get this is kind of a confusing thing. New vector 3. And the reason it has to be a new vector 3 is just because I need to think about it in terms of new vector 3. So this ND, okay, dot Y. And why is it dot Y? Because the Y motion refers to the X axis, which is what we're rotating around when we go on the Y input. So we have to flip the Y and the X, um, never rotate Z-axis. Um, might be different when we go ahead and track it, but for 3D, you never do that because it's unmanageable for a lot of users. Unless you're doing like tilt cams and stuff, like tilt around corners and what have you. So we'll keep going for a little bit longer. Um, yeah, we're over the halfway point, so I'm actually going to pull up um, the one size and just remind everybody to, if you're finding these helpful, remember you can watch live at twitch.tv, jib at BFP, and you can watch recorded videos over on the YouTube channel at Bug Free Productions. And like, subscribe, and follow on Twitch if you find this interesting. And remember to comment and all that stuff if you have a question. Because that helps it helps things move forward. So, okay, so now that our rotation rot direction is calculated, what would I want to do now? So next step for me would be to go ahead and actually rotate, which mm, okay, so the player camera, this is the player camera context. And why context? Because this input actions has to be somewhere else, and this can't sit on the camera. It actually sits on the player object. So let's take a look at how that should sit. So this should sit on the whole body. Camera context. So that it's let's do player. Let's do a player input. UI input. Input module. Not doing anything special with that. I'm going to use invoke Unity events. Expand the events. Check out under master player input. And we have a move input. So we're actually going to add that to nothing just yet, actually, because I don't have that made. Or do I have that made? Player move context local. Events. Then let's go back to our player context local. So in our player context local, we'll probably look at some other stuff, and we'll go create some other method calls, I think. No, that was going to be on the bridge. this bridge. This bridge should take care of some stuff. So, the methods on the bridge are probably going to directly mirror the other methods. So it's going to be a lot of typing and I might not even, this might be where I end up tonight. Just going to go with player local context. No, it's going to be public protected virtual. Yeah, this is also wrong. It's going to have to be public. Void of type. And it's going to be mouse So I'm actually just going to cut this because I don't want it in the context. If you were looking at this and thinking, that's very weird that he has that in the context. Yes, it was. It was not right. Oh, and it added the using statement for me, using input system. I'll probably create. Probably do something like a region here. Camera bars. Reason bars there. It's just because there will be more bars. For camera. For camera context access. And that is basically just so that camera context can access it, pass it on to the state, which then does decision making on how to do it, do what it's asked to do. So mouse cam controls, basically that, the art input bridge, control RR. I just want this to be like, delete this part. If we're gonna combine them, I don't know, might separate them again later. With that, let's go ahead and move to the Unity input. So are we gonna have keyboard move? We're gonna have primary action left, primary action right, and probably define these other ones. So what we'll actually define right away is primary action left Q and primary action right E. See, so let's copy that. And then paste here. What is it? Paste in a new method. Keyboard player controls. That fits in here. PUBLIC virtual void This is also going to use input action context. So if we're using a callback context here, what are we looking for? Action left queue. Maybe let's worry about that in a minute. And this one is E and write E. And then Q, primary action left. Where's the move? Move input. Keyboard move input. Actually, that didn't matter all that much, did it? Keyboard move. So let's go in and where's keyboard? So we could create a new method. Probably do that above this one. BLIC void keyboard move. And we'll just let's copy and paste. Control C, Control V, and callback action context, keyboard move, callback acon. So this is another vector 2, another vector 2. So X and Y basically. So we're doing a very similar thing to here. I'll actually even just copy this line. Copy this line. Then we'll go back up, and that's why I separated it there. Region. Movement bars. End region. And mouse cam controls keyboard move. Probably want to add the vector 2 move. Yeah, and the reason some of this is really just left pretty poorly named is I'm not entirely sure what I'm doing with it just yet either. So as I pin down what I'm doing, I can do some renaming and some other stuff too. Vector 2 move. And this is going to be a protected or could even be private vector 3. This should not be capitalized. Equals vector 3 is 0. That works fine. As a declaration, meaning it is a vector 3, but it is of 0, 0, 0. So in keyboard move, So this is not quite correct. So remember I was talking about making a new vector 3? I had to use the x, y, and z. So x is still going to be the same. Nope. Oh, I screwed that up. So it's still okay to hold that there. Move dir is equal to the new vector 3. Vector 3 ender dot x, and that's not y. Ender dot y is used in the z because we won't be moving along the y-axis. Our z-axis is technically our forward. So we just keep with that unity convention of z being forward and that always being true, and we continue moving direction like this. Okay. Weird high-pitched beeping noise. I don't think it picks up there, but there we go. So here we do that instead of up here where we do the y and x. Why did I flip? Yeah, because rotation is flipped, x and y, and movement is x 0 y. So that's a little way to do the vector 2 style of it. We'll actually be using some three-dimensional stuff later, or vector 3 type stuff later, but for right now that's pretty good. I don't know what my actions are going to be yet. Like I said, I need to kind of get a feel for the headset again. It's been a while because it's always like quick setup, so it's like 3 hours total I'm working with it. So it's not a foreign idea to me. Like, I'm not foreign to working with it. I'm just not as proficient to be able to just code it ahead of time before being able to test it. So this is looking pretty good. How much time we got? That's 40 after. I'm probably actually just gonna end it here because I don't know that I can fit all the rotation stuff in one more shot. So basically I got everything set up to start running the rotation and the movement, and I'll actually start doing that next in one of the next ones coming up. So there's actually 3 programs going on right now that I'm working on. So let's go back to here. Let's go back to the screen and pop over to the screen. So right now there's actually like 3 different kinds of things I'm working on right now. One is the racer, the second is the comic, and the third is the what I'll actually be spending more of a majority on my time working, which we'll see if this turns into an instructional or just a kind of devlog type thing where I talk over what I've been doing. Creating this virtual classroom that I was like greenlit to go ahead and share all this stuff with, and just generally how I'm handling it, which will actually use the JSON saving system I wrote over in the bike tutorial, and with that sort of stuff. So we'll see what gets time as far as on this channel or anything. If you have questions. If you have questions or anything you'd like to see, just go ahead and let me know in the comments on the YouTube channel. So remember to watch live on Twitch at Jib at BFP. If you're liking the content and want to visit slash participate live, or over on the youtube.com if you can't make the times or want to check out past videos at Bug Free Productions. Um, and the streaming times will probably get set sometime soon. I'm just still kind of moving in, and I don't know exactly what my schedule times are going to be exactly yet. So both content and what I'm working on will be a bit variable for a little bit longer. So to those still viewing, thank you, and as always, have a bug-free night.